You guys are having an amazing start to your day. I'm really excited that to have you guys on here for half an hour to kind of give you a little intro to Business Without Limits. Before we get going, there's two things that I want to chat with you guys about today. One is, so why are we even talking about Business Without Limits, and why are we here? So ultimately, one of the passions that I have is getting people to get out of mediocrity. And so what I found was that by every time I get around people through training events or different organizations or education stuff that we're doing through, people would get all excited and they'd get all ramped up and they want to go out there and make these changes in their lives. And then 60 days later, 90 days later, 6 months later, at the next event, I'd see them and they really hadn't done anything. And so then over the past couple of years, I started thinking about, well, why do everyone wants to make these changes in their life? So why aren't people actually doing it? Why aren't people actually following through with what matters in order to change their lives? So remember this, and you should write this question down. Whenever somebody asks me, right, well, what's your goal? Or if I ask them what's their goal, and they tell me what their goal is, and let's just use, for example, they did 30 transactions last year. And they said, look, my goal is to do 100. I'll say, great. My next question, this should be your staple question, not only to ask people, but this is the question that I want you to ask yourself. Remember, the quality of your life term, the quality of questions you ask yourself. I want you to ask the question is, what am I willing to change in my daily routine in order to accomplish this goal? You have to understand that fundamentally, success is actually very simple. What's hard is the monotonous daily grind that people are going through that actually is really challenging. That's the hardest part of this, is being able to stay with something long enough to see the compounded growth or the geometric growth from it. And that's where it's going to come from. And that's the really neat thing. So so the reason why I developed this course, Business Without Limits, and again, Business Without Limits, we're talking about building businesses here, not being necessarily a sales agent. We all started out as one, but the goal is to build a business so you can have the experiences worth giving through the business. And so this course is designed to walk you through in a model-based situation, step by step, to really get you outside of thinking the normal way you're thinking and be able to, at the end of the course, have your plan outlined so that as long as you follow the model and the systems, i.e. the platform that's created here, you'll be able to change whatever aspect of your life. And you know, the really interesting thing about this is once you change something in your life and you see the benefit from it, so you see the grind that you go through in one aspect of your life, you can't just keep it to one part of your world. It automatically leaks into all the other aspects of it, to physicality, to business, to social, to spiritual, to your partnerships, to your family, right, to your finances. And that's living a business that has no limits in it. That's living a life without limits, right? And that's where the whole course comes from. So I just want to give you guys some background as to why we developed this course. And really, the backbone of this is to give you the entire platform that I've inherited from billionaires and from working one-on-one with Gary for so long, to really put this into my life and say, okay, here's what I know has worked for me, for the model systems that I've learned from other people who have modeled and systematized this and who have learned it from other people that have been successful in this. And it's packaged up and wanting to give to you guys. That's the whole journey here, is to be able to do that. And secondly, the other thing that I'm going to bring into you out of one of the things that people had asked for is, you know, what tools to use. So you can see here, this is presented by Boomtown. We use Boomtown for all of our platforms. It's a robust system. They do a great job of tying everything in together through all our locations that we have throughout the country so that we can uniformly see everything come in. We have the same platform, we have the same goals, so we have the same systems so that if our hub is working on this, we can easily understand, and their team is great to work with. So if you haven't explored looking at Boomtown, definitely do. And so one of the things that I promised people is that we would present a tool that we're using, because look, there's so many tools out there that has been instrumental that we've been using that have been, again, really effective into our business in order to create this platform that we're using. So over the next 8 weeks when we on this journey for Business Without Limits, we will literally be introducing a new tool and giving you guys some breaks on those things to help you guys build those platforms should you want to take advantage of it. And before we get going with this thing, I presented this really neat thing that hopefully you guys let me digress for a second. I don't know if anybody's read the book. It's called Me, Me, Me. It's really about kind of raising kids, but it's really about raising and teaching and leading anybody. And as I said, everything you learn leaks in other aspects of your life. one of the concepts or models that they teach, and this will take a second, one of the concepts or models they teach is called MBS. And if anybody's read it, you'll understand it. It's called mind, body, soul. And it's really, when I first heard it, I was like, well, mind, body, soul, what is this? Kind of skeptical a little bit, you know, hey, and it's really designed to get you to, for 10 minutes a day, spending time with your kids one-on-one. Again, it's for kids, but I'm going to explain why I'm bringing this up to you in a second. It's mind, body, soul. And so when I heard that, I go, well, man, I already give my mind, body, and soul to my kids. And then about 5 minutes later, this kind of feeling came over me, and I said, well, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm actually not as good as I thought I was about being a parent. And so this question started coming in. So then I was like, well, now I got to go out and find this out. And so let me go out and try this model out. And so really it's 10 minutes to each kid. It's called mind, body, soul time. My kids who are 3 this morning, Asher, my youngest, or actually not my youngest, my middle one, 3 years old, he's like, Daddy, are we going to do mind, body, soul time right now? Mind, body, soul. And I have to go to work right now, but after work, he's like, yeah, he's all crying. It's so sad. But we're going to do it after work. But the thing is it's kids need to feel empowered just like we do. Just like your leadership team, just like your organization, just like the people around you need to feel empowered, so they get to pick the activity, they decide what we're going to be doing, and it's 10 minutes of uninterrupted, set a timer. It helps me because I know I can do it for 10 minutes. If it's for an hour or longer, sometimes I get lost in that, and I get frustrated and want to check something. So 10 minutes, I know I can do that, and they know it's 10 minutes, and they get to pick it. So what's happened is it's created this really cool cycle in here, and more importantly, I realized that I wasn't actually giving my soul over to that time. And really what that means is just your presence, right? We use this big word, soul, but it means really being there. And maybe I was to a degree, but I found that you can always improve upon anything that you're doing. So this has really gotten me to that point. And I want you guys to think about this when you're meeting with your next client, when you're meeting with your spouse, right? When you're meeting with your kids, when you're meeting with your other members of your team, how present are you with them? On your weekly meetings with them, are you giving your mind, body, and soul, or are you just giving your body just to be there? You have to give all three of these. So remember the MBS. Maybe you write it down, maybe you have it in there, and you just keep it next to you. I wanted to share that with you guys because it's something that's helped change my life to be more purposeful. And the benefit of all of this is it actually creates efficiencies in your life, because if you know that you go out there and you can spend 10 minutes with each kid, or 10 minutes in a 4-on-1 session instead of 30, it's the most intense 10 minutes that you had, and now you can do 3 in 30 minutes instead of 1 in 30 minutes, which the reality is it probably could be condensed to 5 to 10 minutes of actually understanding what it is. And again, I'll walk you guys through that throughout this course, but that's the key to it, right? So remember the mind, body, soul technique that we're gonna jump in there for. And the other feature, I said there's 2 things I want to share with you guys before we actually started. Mind, body, soul. And the second one, I thought this was really interesting. The owner of Epic Bars, has anybody ever seen that before? It's like meat-based protein bars. And this organization, the guy never went to college, never went to business school, but he has a very strong leadership cues from animals. And I thought there's 5 of them, but the first one I like the most. And I wanted to share this with you guys. And if you want the article, it's ask, I can give it to you guys. But the first one is face fear like bison. Right? Face fear like bison. Let's write that down. It's face fear like bison. So interesting, when a storm brews on the horizon, most animals run away from it. But bison instinctively run directly towards storms to minimize the amount of time they're exposed to the elements. The purpose of this, and what I want to share with you guys, is the next time that you're faced with adversity, head on and power through whatever comes your way. And remember the bison, they go right directly to it, right? It's the line from The Hard Things About Hard Things when he says, you know, if you're going to eat shit, don't nibble, right? You go full forward with it. So next time, look, we all have challenges. We all have struggles. We all have obstacles. And by the way, we all have gifts that show up in the form of problems in our life every day, from health to people leaving to money to financial. And by the way, they can all really be circulated down the 2 things, and normally just one, and it's people. It's who you have to become or the people you have around you. And so that's a really powerful aspect here. So I want you to remember next time, maybe you're facing one right now. Remember, face fear like a bison, because fear is what paralyzes all of us, and we'll get into that, right? Fear never goes away from any of us. Fear is always going to prevent us from speaking up, from doing something, from taking action, fear of some sort. But if we can learn to dance with fear, we can learn to take control of our lives. So just remember that. So remember the 2 things right here, MBS, mind, body, soul, with being present with everybody that you're doing, your family, your partners, your clients, your leadership team, and then member face fear like your Bison. So remember, building a business is really, the way that you build any organization, ladies and gentlemen, is by building a platform. And people forget this concept, so they go, and so the difference between an organization that starts off 0 on day 1 and after 5 years is able to hit geometric growth, is the difference between that is how well the individuals executed the platform. That's ultimately what it is, and this course is designed to actually give you guys that platform, because I want you guys to go out there and succeed at the highest level possible. It makes us all succeed at a higher level when we're all doing this. So when you build a platform for your business, it starts with your own personal development plan. And then we all hear the word personal development, right? So what does it mean? Because remember, the gap between where you are and where you want to go is always going to be a who. We've heard that before from Gary. But what you don't realize is the first who is usually you. Let me just hold on that note for a second, right? The first who is usually you. So that means that you have to change. I started this conversation off by saying, listen, when you ask yourself, or when you're looking at your goals, and we're in the early stages of 2016, I know the first quarter is about to end, but we've still got a lot of time ramped up in real estate, which is why we're launching this course right now in April. And remember this, is that it's designed to ask questions. If you change your goal, you have to ask yourself and look at your calendar and say, okay, what am I going to change in my calendar to make sure that my goals are met? Because if you do the same things every day and are expecting a different result, well, we already know what the definition of that is. So the things that you want to look for in your platform is, what is your morning routine, right? Are you investing into education, right? Are you investing into your health, your family time, and your extreme time management, right? Extreme time management is so important. Again, I led off, and it was purposeful about the mind, body, soul thing, because if you can accomplish things, people say I never have time. Well, the thing is it's not, we all have 24 hours in a day, so time isn't the cheat, right? We all have 48 hours in 2 days. So in 2 days, why do some people accomplish more? It's because of how purposeful they are with their actual time. I want you to think about it this way. If you're going out there and you are exercising for something, right? And this is going back to being how purposeful you are with your time. So if you're exercising, right? If you're just going out and exercising, maybe you get a good workout in, maybe you get a good workout, maybe you get a good sweat going, and it feels great, right? And that's good. But what if you are training for a marathon? What if you're training for the CrossFit Games? Or what if you're training for an Ironman, or whatever you're training for? The difference between exercise and training has the degree of intensity. So when you exercise, you get on a treadmill for 30 minutes, or you get on an elliptical, or you go lift some weights, and maybe you follow a model, maybe you don't. When you're training, how purposeful. Think about when you were training for high school sports. How purposeful and rigid, by the way, every day were you on these things? Or maybe some of you who were in collegiate sports, right, that were literally that purposeful and that focused on those things on a daily basis. And that's how I want you to think about your time management. You have to be in the mindset of training. Remember, 90% of success is psychology and 10% is just mechanics. 90% is how you go into approaching something, and 10% is going to how you actually execute that, right? Because if you can't think that first, you're never going to be able to actually execute it. So I want you to think about, are you exercising, right? And I don't actually want you to think about it in terms of physicality. I want you to think about it in terms of the analogy that I'm giving you guys here with your time, or are you actually executing this from a training mentality? And hopefully you guys, that analogy makes sense for you. When you were training with sports and you had a clear victory of how to do something, you actually trained harder for it. So every time it was like, I got to push myself here, I got to push myself there. And so your intensity increases. So in order to build your platform, to have a business without limits, right, you have to start with your own personal development, your morning routine. And again, all of these, I'm just hitting on a few of these things. We actually are going to go into pretty good detail on this stuff to make sure that you have it. One of the things that we're going to go really deep into is actually extreme time management. One of the first things that Gary ever told me in the very beginning of this meeting, he said, well, everyone pull out your calendar, whatever it is. Is it paper? Is it electronic? And this was 7 years ago, right? 7 years ago. So, I mean, calendars on phones weren't as popular. They certainly were, but not as popular. So there's a group of KW leadership and a couple of us that were there, and so everyone kind of took out their calendar, and he said, look, he said, well, how much money, he goes, you don't have to answer, but how much money did you guys make last year, right? And so everyone kind of thought about it. Nobody shared their answers, but you kind of think about it rhetorically. And he goes, well, good, because that's how much your calendar is worth. And we were like, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, if you made $100,000 this year, you have a $100,000 calendar. If you made $1 million last year, you have a $1 million calendar. And it really, from that moment, got me thinking about how focused we have to be on our time management in order to be so effective at things that we do, right? And that's the goal here. So how do you do that, right? It's very easy to say, I'm going to be very focused on my time management, but do I actually change anything? Most of us don't. Most of us think that, or they want to make more money, or they want to lose weight, or they want to they want to hire people, they want to do different things, they want to build a business. And then I asked them, I said, well, great, well, let me ask you this question. How many times did you spend, how many hours a week this week did you spend actually lead generating for talent? If talent's your most important thing, then how many hours did you spend actually lead generating for talent? And typically the answer is like 0 or 15 minutes, and they're just hopefully somebody that's amazing who's going to fall in their lap. Let me tell you something. Really good people, I mean exceptional people, and that word is thrown around to now, top talent, or I have an amazing person, is thrown around way too often now. How often does that person just kind of walk into your office and like, hey, I've had a job for like 4 months, but you know, I'm amazing at doing this, and I think you should hire me. Remember, the best people aren't sitting around waiting for you. You have to go find them. And that's a big distinction people don't understand. Now, can you get mediocre people? Can you get people that that are B players or C players? Yeah, you can probably find them. They probably show up there. But if you want to build the ultimate business and you want to have the people that really succeed to them, who are going to be the most successful, you've got to build you up. You've got to build your brand up so that these people are attracted to you. These people are going out there and saying, look, my company is not giving me enough. I want to get into your world. How do I do that? By the way, I'm number one in this, and this. I'm already succeeding here. How do I get into your world? So again, it starts with you, right? The gap between where you are and where you want to go is the who, and most of the time it's the first is the who is you. So we're going to talk about how do you create your ideal daily schedule. We're literally going to give you worksheets on this stuff. You don't have to do them on the webinar, but we certainly will do it. How do you travel for it? How do you train while business trips, delivered, giving you the models and systems for that? And then ultimately, how we're succeeding through others, right? That's such a big one because it's a different look. There's really good salespeople, and then there's business owners. And it doesn't mean you can't become one. It just means that you have to be able to change how you think about things. It's actually very humbling being able to succeed through other people because other people make a lot more mistakes. And remember, we judge our intentions and we judge other people's actions. And so when that happens, we see other people failing, and we have to actually be able to learn how to succeed through other people. And if you don't have amazing people, and even if you do, there's still going to be challenges along the way. So we're going to talk a lot about how you leverage to other people, and then mastermind adventures, and what's the beauty about that, how you put those in place with a group so that you have a support team. You have people that are constantly pushing you, not necessarily on a daily basis, but you know, you get around them and you get competitive and it gets fun. And how do you create that group from the beginning so that you're really leading in the best positive direction you can? So let me give you the definition of the platform, and you should write this down. You can have these slides, but it's models, systems, and structure equals your platform. Remember, the platform is the difference between organizations that hit geometric growth and the organizations that just stay flat or go downhill or slight increases, right? And it's typically those slight increases or flat is just based on the individual entrepreneur himself bringing the business through. In order to create a platform, that's where you bring people in, and it takes models, it takes systems, and it takes structure, all three of which we're going to be highlighting in this course to, again, give you guys this platform at the end of these 8 weeks, but so you have full immersion of this thing, right? So you have full immersion of this. Models, systems, and structure. So what is models, right? Models is your vision and your belief system, right? This should come from you. This is your vision, this is your belief system. This is what you wholeheartedly believe. This is who you want to become. This is who your organization is. This is who you're going to, remember, not everyone's going to agree with you, and that's okay. You actually want that. If we all agree with everybody, it wouldn't be fun, right? There wouldn't be Nike and Under Armour, right? It would just be Under Armour or Nike, right? So think about, you have to develop who you want to become, right? So think about the model that you're using. Are you vision? And again, we're going to give you the tools to be able to succeed through this. The systems. This is the execution, right? This is truly one of the most important aspects of this. Is a lot of us can visualize what we want to do. A lot of us actually get to the point where we're going to believe what we're going to do, but then we fall short in the execution part. So we're going to walk you through step by step how to actually implement the execution of this thing. And I want to tell you briefly, a week and a half ago, I completed my first half Ironman. It was the first triathlon I ever did, and maybe some of you guys saw it on Facebook. And I'd never done a triathlon. I signed up for my first, swim course in November. So I had like 5 months to prepare for this, and it was down in Claremont, Florida. And the day before my race, I get on my call with my coach. And by the way, I have I believe one of the best top coaches in the country to coach me on this, and I have also 2 dietitians, so I have 3 coaches for Ironman training. Again, how purposeful I am about investing into people that are around me that need to give me the models and systems that have done it before. And so I said, I have this goal of this, and he goes, well, look, dude, I don't ever want to hear you tell me what your goal time is again. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He goes, he's like, you're wasting up energy. And that's why I said, well, look, I teach about the end results. The most important, you got to have your goal. You got to start this. He goes, I get it, and you can have your goal, and you need your big why. You need that, but right now, what we need to do is execute. I said, well, explain to me. He goes, well, the thing is if you keep concentrating on your end goal, you may get through there, but you're going to miss some steps along the way. So what I want you to do is concentrate on the daily execution, of the minute-by-minute execution. So as soon as you get in the water, you have high turnover, you have this, you maintain this pace, you're looking at this heart rate. As soon as you get off this, you have this type of gel. 10 minutes later, you're drinking this. You're handling this. Every 30 minutes, you're eating this. And these are the exact, I want you to tell me exactly what you're going to be eating throughout this phase, where it is the pace you're going to, what heartbeat you're going to stay at. Literally, what is the execution? Because if you execute it there, you're actually going to exceed your goal. And he was right. So I literally got rid of, I still had my own goal of what I wanted to do, and I keep that in there. But then I just focused on the execution of that stuff, and I ended up taking second in my age division, 14th overall in my first race. And part of that, I use that as an example of I didn't do anything differently. I'm not gifted in athletics or sports more than anybody else is. I literally just followed the model for 5 months of 15 to 20 plus hours a week of training. And people ask me, say, well, how'd you do it? And I said, well, look, I'd love to give you the secret answer, like there's a pill or something you could take for being able to do this or build a business, but there's not. Let me just tell you guys that. It's just hard work. It's time on the saddle. It's time on your feet running. It's time in the pool. It's time lead generating for talent. It's time training people. It's time investing into yourself so that you can become somebody different so people want to be around you. But it's time. That's what you have to get extremely focused on there. So you're constantly increasing your own value for every second that you're here. Right? And that's the systems of execution. So how we walk the minute-by-minute execution, and if you do that, how that in turn will automatically make sure that you hit your goal. That's the really cool part. And then you have structure, right? That's the accountability, that's the coaching, that's the training. And remember, there's a difference in coaching and training. Coaching is the accountability aspect of, did you make 20 calls? Did you make 25 calls? Did you spend 3 hours lead generating? Did you spend 15 minutes role playing, right? And training is helping somebody have breakthroughs, right? And coaching does the exact same thing. Training's more of, hey, we're going to be training you on a subject, right? So you actually can pull that in there. So you have to have people doing all of that. So if you have the models, you have the systems, and you have the structure, that's your platform. And the secret weapon, the secret sauce to all of this, ladies and gentlemen, is you need the right people to execute those 3 things. So I've seen organizations inside and outside of real estate that have models, they have the systems, they have the structure, but they have the wrong people executing. And that's a really important, and a lot of times they're the wrong person in the wrong position, just like Gary was 35 years ago. He was the wrong person. He built up all these market centers, turned them over, and they all failed, right? And finally he realized, I need to fire myself. So we literally walk you guys through this platform to make sure that you understand where are you supposed to be, what the platform looks like, and how and what you're going to be doing through that. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. And then we're going to actually, there's a really great book out there. If you haven't read it, The 4 Disciplines of Execution is an amazing book about execution. And when we get to the subject of execution, we're going to focus on this. But the most important thing to take away from this slide is that I want you guys to understand that you need to make sure that you have a wildly important goal that shows how you win on a daily or weekly basis. Think about back to when you're playing sports. If you're playing a sport and there was no score, how hard did you play? What about when there was a score? What about when there was fans out there rooting and they're looking at the score every second? How much harder did you play when there's a scoreboard? So what scoreboard have you created for your team? How do you, within 5 seconds of looking at something, right, whatever your scoreboard is, how can you tell if you've won? And that's what you need. We all get this. Now, you can have a back-end scoreboard that you can have all these numbers on, but your team needs to see a scoreboard that shows within 5 seconds of you looking at it that everyone can see if you won. So if your wildly important goal is, 10 tendings in a month, then you have that goal up there, and then you need to focus on the lead measures, which is how many appointments are being set. So maybe your lead measure is I need 1 appointment a day. And so then after each day, you know if you won. Did everyone hit 1 appointment? If you didn't, you lost, right? That's the scorecard for it. And then every day you should have a certain number of pennies that happen, right? So you need to make sure you have that. So you focus on your wildly important goal, because look, the whirlwind of life is going to show up, and all these activities, all these adventures are going to be all around us. They're going to be sucking us in, and we're like, I got to do this, I got to do that, screaming all important. And then you start having these 10, 15 wildly important goals because of the whirlwind, that you're just being reactive instead of actually taking control of your time, saying no to a lot of other things, and being able to push forward with it. You know, I started off with the wildlife role models, right? We talked about face fear like bison, so if you just forgot that, remember that. But there's another one here. It says, eat like a wolf. It says, after a kill, a wolf will tear open its prey's abdomen and eat the organs first. That's because the liver, heart, marrow, and visceral fats provide nutrient-dense substances, right? Resist convention by seeking value in the things that others ignore, i.e., how are you willing to say no to everything else and go directly for the most nutrient-packed source for your business, right? It's kind of a little crazy example, but I wanted you guys to see that and feel that, right? Because now you'll remember that. How are you saying no to those things? So focus on your wildly important goal. What are your lead measures for? And again, don't think you have to understand all this. We're going to break this down for you, so you actually, we're just using his concept, so I want to make sure he gets credit for it, because and I know a lot of other big teams are employed this into their lives as well. So we're going to walk you through how to do this so that you literally are walking out of it and making sure that it happens. So we've got 3 minutes left. I want to make sure we cover some logistics of this stuff. So there's 8 live webinars plus 3 bonus calls. Now these are awesome. These are with 3 bonus calls with our operations, director of operations, who literally handles the hub from the administrative side for all the stuff that we're doing there. Carrie, who's our director of growth, she's going to be doing that, and 1 other additional bonus person. We're going to keep it a little secret until we do it. So the 8 live webinars plus 3 bonus calls. It's $6.99 per team. Again, this is for the team. You can have one of the benefits. So last time we did this course in the fall, we had several hundred people on the call, and what they did was, and that was just each individual line, and then each person had like, so we, you know, who knows, we may have 500, 600 people on the line at different times, and sometimes you've ever been to a training event where you've been saying something to your team, but then they heard it from somebody else and they go back and implement it, right? Because you're never a prophet in your own land. So sometimes you need other people to hear it. So let me do that heavy lifting for you about allowing them to hear it from me, so that you can actually go out there and then work on the implementation and execution of that. So you can have everyone in the team in there. It's built in 3 monthly installments. Again, all team members are allowed to participate. All calls will be recorded, right? So just remember that they will be. It starts April 4th at 2:30. So again, it's starting really soon. We're excited about that for it as well too. So any questions? If you don't, I'm going to end with one thing before we go. Actually, I'm sure there is a bunch of questions, but I don't even have them open, so it's going around. All right, there's a lot of questions there. I'll let Hallie answer majority of them. So I want to end you guys with this, right? So remember, when you are off building your platform, you're out building your own growth, life is nothing but this wonderful journey we're here. And I often ask myself this question, is what is the purpose of life, right? So why are we here? And if our goal, our journey, in my opinion, is to be here so that we all have we're all just a physical being having a minor spiritual, or just a spiritual being having a minor physical experience, then all the experiences that we occur, they need to have, whether they're positive or negative, we need to have. They're actually good for us. They actually create who we're going to be. They morally give us that direction to be able to push forward with it. But you have to put yourself in a structure that allows you to actually push yourself to the limits that you never thought possible. Now that thought possible is going to be different for everybody, but what I want you guys to do is make sure you're setting yourself up in a structure so that you're constantly getting the biggest experiences, both positive and negative, so that you grow the most spiritually. And if you do that, you're ultimately going to end up with a life without limits, which is the ultimate goal for all these things. And then eventually, as you continue to build that, you're going to end up with a business without limits. And that's a really cool thing. So throughout this course, we're going to be talking a lot about that, what that means, what the platform means. Remember MBS, mind, body, soul. If you get anything, you don't join me on the journey, make sure you take that away and you stay really, really focused on the mind, body, and soul. You guys are amazing. Look forward to having you guys on next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.